So every December, I end my year with some level of reflection. And in that reflection, I start thinking about some of the things that happened in that year and what are some of the things that I'm leaving behind and one of some of the things that I'm looking forward to the following year. So I don't give myself or create New Year's resolutions. I really just focus on reflecting my life. And today, as I was thinking about what was going on, I realized that I don't ever take the time to look at what are those things in December. And so I thought about it. So, what if I don't have to wait until December? What if I start looking into that now to see where I'm at? So, welcome to Freedom Friday. I'm Dr. Nakiba Jackson, and this week I'm going to talk about just the freedom to be able to discover who you're becoming. And so, like I said, I ended last year in December thinking about some of the things and some of the questions that when I go back and reflect on it, I looked at what are some of my three biggest wins of the year. And then just for me in that writing and reflection, what I wrote was I started letting go of people that no longer serve me. I started choosing myself. And then the third one was loving on me. And then I just talked about some of the things that I did that allowed me to just focus on those three biggest wins for myself. Some of them was cutting my hair, um, getting married, and standing up for my daughter because she went through some different things in 2025. So I was just focusing on just making sure I'm happy, and my happiness is for me, and it's also sometimes tied to the people that I love being happy around me as well. And I talked about letting go of relationships that weren't good for me. And so um, the next thing that I talked about was what were the three biggest failures that was included. And so for me, or what are the three biggest lessons? And so I said I didn't need validation for others. And if I want something done, I have to start trusting myself. And then the third part of that was don't be afraid to bet on myself. And I learned that lesson from my sister because there's been so many times that I've seen her talk about what she wants to do. And sometimes, like a lot of us, are kind of afraid of what the outcome would look like. But then when you start taking care of yourself and thinking about yourself, you really will think about, well, hey, if I get to depend on myself, and I want others to depend on me, why can't I depend on me? So that's like, don't be afraid to bet on myself. And then the other thing that I was looking at was like, what are some of the things that drain my energy consistently? And it was just like hiding myself from others, explaining my decisions, trying to make others feel comfortable and good, being quiet in meetings. And and then some of the other things that I looked at was um just just to be honest, like what are some of the things that gave me energy? And so I talked about praying, I talked about singing, uplifting others, spending time with my daughter, and just things like that. And then I talked about what were some of the things that I wanted to complete, closing a loop on my house. I had a situation with my house that was going on, and in the U.S., making a plan for my health, working on finances, cleaning my house here, and then getting rid of old clothes. And then I wanted to talk about a relationship reset. So I listed like the people who made a difference in my life. And this list that I had were really positive people, not necessarily the negative. So this Freedom Friday, like when I talk about like the freedom to be able to just for yourself, like to reflect on yourself, what I realized was I don't always go back to look at what's going on. I wait until like the end of the year to take this whole inventory, right? And at the end of the year, when I'm waiting on this, it's kind of reflective of some of the things that I do that create chaos in my life while I'm living it. For example, I talk about like the addict, metaphor, and the attic is like I have so much stuff sometimes, mental clutter and things that I want to do, that I get all these things and I store them up in the attic. And a lot of the times I don't make the time to go back and look at these things and have a plan for how I'm going to execute it or what I'm going to do with it. And a lot of the times, like even with that list, if I don't spend the time with it, those things end up becoming stored, forgotten, and just things that I kind of forget. And then when I wait till the end of the year, have this big old list of things that I want to look at and things that I want to focus on, or that I kind of forget who I became in that year while I was going through the things. And so it looks, when I take the time to do some of that stuff at the end of the year, it gives me an opportunity to kind of reflect on the person that I've become and all the things that I've gone through. But I also don't give myself the opportunity to truly celebrate the person that I've become throughout that time. So this time, like I said, it's July, and I was like, let me look back at what I've done and how that's done. And even if I ask myself these same questions, like how would I answer those questions today? And what difference from 2025 end of the year reflection to possibly the 2023, because I don't know that I did one in 2024, was I kind of shortened my list and I made it a little different. Usually I go through a whole list of the things that I want to do, what I'm bringing forward to the next year. And so that year I didn't really give myself that stuff. But if I had to look at myself right now and talk about um, just three of the things, like even on this list, like did anything surprise me, right? And what are some of the things that I'm still working through? Because I talked about the three biggest wins. And what I want you to understand is that even though you look at the things and you say, like, hey, it's a win comes with work throughout it. And so, like, unless you're just like you're training for a marathon and you're like, hey, I'm going to run one marathon, and you ran that marathon and you ran it or you beat your time, that's your win. If you never want to do another marathon, then you're done. You don't ever have to go back and kind of think about what are some of the things that I did to get it, unless you're talking about the habits to do something else. And so for me, when I talked about letting go of people that no longer serve me, um, even for me, like thinking about like, hey, who did I let go? And I think about some of the people that I did leave go. When I say no longer serve me, it was like sometimes people would come in my life and have a purpose. Well, for me, I believe in everything happens for a reason, a season, and a lifetime, right? And so for me, um, when there are lessons that I get from people and that we get from each other, and it helps build me up and then help me figure out where I'm at, who I am, and where I want to go. And so even this year, as I'm thinking about it, there's people in my life that I feel like I've had to kind of release, or kind of release their hold on me mentally. And choosing myself, for me, what I'm learning is choosing myself is a practice that I get to do on a regular basis. I didn't just wake up or end 2025 and say, hey, I chose myself, so I'm going to always know what it looks like to continue to choose myself. Because even as I look into this year, as I've gone through, I've had multiple moments where I've done these things where I talked about before, people pleasing, doing things just to go along with the flow and to help people feel good about themselves and things like that. And then loving on me, I'm still working through loving on me, like what that looks like. Because for me, if I can't understand what loving on me looks like, how do I expect someone else or to understand what it feels like when someone else is loving on me as well? And so I really think that we get to spend some time to focus on what does loving on ourselves look like. And when we start loving on ourselves more, then we actually show other people how to love on us properly. And a lot of the times when we don't spend time in just understanding ourselves and figuring out what are the things that we need, sometimes we look outwardly for validation from others just to be able to help us get to that point of where we want to be. And a lot of the times the outward focus is misplaced because we really have to start with ourselves. And then like going on to not needing validation from others, like that's a thing that I still work through, right? Um, just this year alone, on my job, and just things that I was going through, like even with my worship service and things like that. Um, and what am I doing to start trusting myself? Like, am I putting in work, energy, and effort for myself? And so For me, some of the things that came up and still coming up for me now this year is still kind of looking for people for a little validation. And it doesn't always come off directly as that, but sometimes it's running things by other people to get what they think. And then to figure out, like, hey, is what they think in alignment with what I think? And or is what I'm thinking in alignment with what they think? And should I do it? And if I do it, what are they going to think? And so, my thing to me, and what I would share with you is I really get to continue to focus on making sure that I start working on myself, deciding who is Nakiba? What does Nakiba want for herself? And how does she want that to look? And am I doing the things now to be able to prepare me for that? And not being afraid to bet on myself. So, one of the things that came up for me, I was talking about my health, doing things to, to improve my health. And I ended up getting on some medicine this year. Well, I was on it last year and I got on a different medicine this year. And then my legs start having this pain. And with the pain, I just was like, just felt very down about the pain because I'm like, every time I move, the pain comes and goes. And so this week, I really spent some time on myself, just focusing on the things that allows me to be the person that I love to see when I look in the mirror. It's like this person who you see that's looking at you, and that I see when I'm looking in the mirror is a person who continues to choose herself every day, who continues to allow herself to figure out ways on what's going to support her and the goals that she create for herself, and make sure she creates an environment that's supportive of that. And so, with the pain, I was like, I don't want to be on medicine forever, but I want to be able to continue to move, and I want to be able to move freely. Like, the freedom that I talk about is like a mental and is a physical thing, it's physical, mental, emotional. It's just so much stuff that comes with freedom and being unbound, right? And so for me, I was allowing myself to kind of tell the story that, you know, you're in pain, so you can't move. And so one of the things that I did this week at lunchtime, I got up, I said, you know what? You're going to walk and you're going to enjoy the walk. And I got up and I started walking. And as I was walking, and I was like, you feel good. I started remembering the things that I did before and remember how I felt. And remember, like, hey, sometimes it started off with pain, but you're able to push through the pain and you're able to push through the things that you need. And what I will share is as I started walking, there was no pain. Even afterwards, I didn't have pain. My body felt really good just to get up and move and just be able to encourage myself along the way. And then the other part was I spent some time just allowing myself to create a tool for myself that allowed me to support the goals that I'm working towards. Because I'm like, it's one thing to have a tool that someone else gave you, but if you want to work on something for yourself, you got to make sure the tool is actually useful and meaningful. And to be honest with you, when I wrote my dissertation, I talked about tools that people actually create for others. And a lot of the times you don't allow others to test those tools to see if those tools are even meaningful. And so for me, that was like a study for myself just to say, like, hey, all these other places have tools that I pay for that I use, but none of these tools quite see who I am as a person and allow me to be able to do something for me. So those are some of the things that I spent some time doing this week. And it just goes just right into play with me just talking about making sure you take the time to just be able to reflect on the person that you're becoming. Don't wait until December. Don't wait until a particular time. The time that we have is now. And so for me, I looked at that and it actually gave me energy because I didn't obsess over the things that I was looking forward to or the things that I did, but it also gave me an opportunity to see who am I becoming in the midst of all these things. And it actually gave me an opportunity to say, are there some things that I need to take a closer look at and some things that I want to continue to embrace for myself to make sure that I'm the person that I want to be and that I'm living the life that I want to live for myself. So, what I will leave you with today is just to continue to spend some time to focus on who you are. Reflection can be a daily practice. Reflection on yourself allows you to be able to face the addict that you're trying to avoid, which is the things that you put up. And it also makes that task less robust. Because if we put in the work to take care of ourselves on a consistent basis, whatever that looks like for you, when you look at the fruits of what you become, you'll see that it's always been a journey that you enjoy doing. There may be some ups and there may be some downs, but I think we should just focus on making sure we continue to do the things that help us be the person that we want to be and celebrate ourselves as much as we can. Be realistic, be reasonable, and most of all, just be nice to yourself. So, with that said, I hope you have a wonderful weekend and I will see you next week. Bye.